How's it going? Today I want to talk to you about some of my favourite experiences from 2025, whether that be movies, TV shows, anime, games, or real life experiences. There's really no reason to make this a top 10, because, how do you compare these? They're all so vastly different, but I don't care. Lists are fun, and that's what I want to do, so that's what I'm doing. Before we kick things off though, I want to run through a couple of honourable mentions, just things that didn't quite make the top 10 for one reason or another, but still deserve a mention.
Earlier this year, I bought myself a Steam Deck OLED, and I can't understate just how much it improved my enjoyment that I get from gaming. Before buying the Steam Deck, there'd be so many times that I would think about getting onto my computer and booting up a game just to realise I only had 20 minutes before I needed to stop and do something else or to go out. That just never felt like enough time, so I wouldn't even bother. But now, I can just quickly turn on the deck, plop down on the couch and start playing within a minute. And then when it's time for me to head out, if I haven't reached a save point in the game, that's fine. I can just put my Steam Deck into sleep mode and be out the door right away. It's really helped me to start ticking off games from my backlog that I've been wanting to play for years, but never gotten around to. You never know, a couple of them might even end up in this video.
I'll lump these next two together since they're both about bands that I play in.
So I'm the bassist in a band called Spaghetti Death Trap, and back in July, we were lucky enough to play a house show, something that I've always wanted to do. Ever since I was a teenager, going to house shows with all the local hardcore bands. The show took place in the lounge room of the guys from a rap group called Meet the Milkmen, a very unusual duo, but I can't deny, they put on a hell of a show. The only issue I had with the show was that we had to use an electric drum kit to avoid any noise complaints. That made it super hard for me to hear the drums while I was playing, and it turns out, playing bass without drums to follow is kinda tough. Everyone seemed to love the set though, regardless of any mistakes, and closing the show with a cover of Scotty Doesn't Know from one of my favourite movies, Eurotrip, was the icing on the cake. Having the crowd shouting along all the words was something I will not soon forget.
When I was 18, I got asked to play bass in a band from a guy that I sort of knew from primary school, but not very well. I also didn't play bass. I was a guitarist. I'd never even played in a band before, so it didn't make much sense for me to say yes, but that's exactly what I did.
I joined a band called Dead Fetus Factory. Oh man, what a name. We were a 3-piece death metal band who could not find a drummer, so we used electronic drums, which ranged from really, really bad to not too bad as the years went on. Most of my friends that I have now stem in some way or another from me joining the band on that day. I had no idea the impact that was going to have on my life. As the years went on and things changed, I left the band, I rejoined the band, we changed the band name to Slow Rot.
I got the Slow Rot logo tattooed on my arm.
We wrote and recorded an EP, but never got around to actually getting it mixed, and ended up just putting it to the side. And eventually, the entire band was just put on the shelf. We never officially ended the band, we just stopped working on it. That was until this year. We got to talking and decided maybe it was time to get the old band back together and give that EP another look. We realised the old recordings weren't exactly up to our standards, and now we've started catching up on the odd occasion when we're all free to slowly re-record the old songs. It's been so much fun hanging out like the old days, making dumb inside jokes from 10 plus years ago that only we understand. It is taking us a while since we're all pretty busy, but just knowing that we're making progress towards releasing that EP one day, that makes me so happy.
The only reason that these two didn't end up on the top 10 is because I didn't want to fill it with personal anecdotes. I wanted to have some recommendations that you guys could try out for yourselves.
Same goes for this last honourable mention. It's another experience I had this year.
In 2023, my friend Luke started working on his first feature film, The Household. He knew that I could kind of act, because when we played in No 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 together, back in the day, we used to film skits to promo our upcoming shows or releases, and yeah, I showed off my acting chops. So Luke asked me if I wanted to be in the film, and of course, I said yes.
I can't add the actual filming of the movie to this list since it happened in 2024, even though it was a really great time. Fast forward to 2025, and the film is finally done, and to celebrate, Luke set up this real nice high quality projector that he borrowed from work. He put it in his backyard, and we had a movie premiere with all of our friends and the cast and crew of the movie. He even set up a red carpet on the driveway for us to walk down to get to our seats. Seeing all his hard work pay off in a really great movie was just such a cool moment. Seeing all our friends on the big screen made for a really fun viewing experience. Everyone had the best night. Now the household has been picked up by a few streaming services too, which just blows my mind. It's available on Found TV, a free found footage horror streaming site, and Tubi. Everybody knows about Tubi. So yeah, being in a movie that's now on streaming services is kinda surreal, and the whole thing just really needed to be mentioned.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. For my job, I do a lot of country driving, usually an hour to an hour and a half each way every day. So that leaves a lot of time to listen to a lot of podcasts.
Throughout the years I've been doing this work, I'll stumble upon a new podcast that really clicks with me and becomes an instant favourite. In the past, it's been the Stash Club Wrestling Podcast, Morbid, Insert Credit, or Insight with Chris Van Vliet. This year, it was Versus Wolves. I know, a bit late to the party with this one. In my defense, they are like 3 to 4 hours long, so I was always hesitant to start an episode. When it first came out, I started listening to Complete Failure versus Fear and Hunger, but after over half an hour, they hadn't even touched either topic, and I was like, screw this. That was dumb. I now understand the format of the show. If you don't know what it is, Versus Wolves is a podcast hosted by Super Eyepatch Wolf and Wooly Versus. Super Eyepatch Wolf actually inspired me to make these videos. I love his Best Things videos. The concept of the show is simple. Wooly recommends something to John, and John recommends something to Wooly. It can be anything, from a game, to an anime, to an experience like trying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the first time. The next episode they come back and talk about all their experiences with the recommendation. Then they rank them against all the past recommendations in a list that ends up ridiculous with questions like, is Earthbound better than Caribbean food? Like, how do you even compare the two? The first episode that I listened to was Sexy Hiking versus Roman Reigns. I had already seen the Super Eyepatch Wolf video about the Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns rivalry, and I adored it. So the idea of hearing John talk about wrestling on a podcast was enough for me to give the almost 5-hour-long episode a shot, and I am really glad that I did. I went into it knowing nothing about Wooly, but he's genuinely hilarious and such a lovable guy. You can instantly feel the close friendship that he and John have. There's something so nice about listening to two friends just chatting about things that they're passionate about. I ended up binging almost every episode over the next few weeks. They make the drives to work fly by. I was super engrossed in the discussions. It didn't matter if I was familiar with the topics beforehand or not. I really enjoyed learning about the subjects that I wasn't already aware of. There was one hurdle though, one episode I didn't want to listen to. The subject was a game that I've always wanted to play, and I knew I wanted to play through it with absolutely no spoilers. That game is actually going to show up later on this list. So the podcast not only ended up on my list of the best things of the year, but made me stop procrastinating on playing a game I've wanted to play for years. And now, that game is also one of my favourite games of all time. After I was finally caught up on the latest episode, it left me with this empty feeling. How could that be it? I need more. Luckily, they release one long episode a month, so there's always more to look forward to. But it's not often that a podcast gets me this excited for the next episode. So that's why Versus Wolves made it onto my list of the best things of 2025.
I started watching wrestling when I was 13. My older sister was getting into it, and one day I just decided to sit down and watch it with her, and I was hooked. Over the years, though, we kind of lost interest and stopped watching it.
That was until 2023, when Danny mentioned she had a slight interest in watching some WWE, almost entirely because of Rhea Ripley, and I mean, can you blame her? Anyway, I jumped at the chance and said we should give it a go, and we've watched every SmackDown, Raw, and pay-per-view from that day forward. I am fully back into the wrestling world, but I haven't had the opportunity to see many live shows. I saw one when I was younger with my stepdad and my sister, but have very little memory of it. Last year, Danny and I went to a World Series wrestling show, but couldn't really enjoy it. We were a bit too far away, stuck behind some tall people, and there was a kid right behind us just squealing profanity so loud. I wanted to turn around and tell him to just shut the hell up. I bit my tongue though and suffered through the show with a throbbing headache. I mean, it's a bit rough to yell at a kid who's having fun at a wrestling show, but my god, it was too much. Adelaide has a few wrestling promotions. There's Adelaide Championship Wrestling, there's Wrestle Rampage, there's also Pro Wrestling South Australia, and then there's the promotion we're talking about today, Riot City Wrestling, former home of WWE stars Rhea Ripley, Zarya, and Bronson Reed. They've also put on matches featuring big-time names like Buddy Matthews, Indy Hartwell, Tony Storm, and more.
On the 25th of October, Riot City Wrestling put on their annual Riot City Rumble event, which they've been hosting every year since 2014. I asked Danny if she'd be interested in going with me. She said, yeah, why not? Her cousin used to wrestle in RCW, and she had a friend who used to wrestle in RCW as well, so she's somewhat familiar with it.
We got to the venue around 6:45 for a 7:30 start, hoping to get some good seats. It was already packed out, but we were lucky enough to get a couple of third row seats just off to the side of the ring, and most importantly, not behind anyone tall. The venue was loud. After sitting and waiting for about 5 minutes, I had to put in my earplugs. I wasn't going to be able to deal with that kind of noise if I didn't have them in. Once the show kicked off though, the noise changed. It wasn't a sea of voices creating a deafening wall. It was still loud, but now it was a chorus of cheers, boos, and a loud bang whenever anyone was slammed down on the mat. I was originally planning on running through all the matches and chatting about each one a bit, but looking at the length of this script now, I think we might have to skip that, and I'll just mention a couple of the highlights. There was a husband vs. wife match between Mickey Fortune and her husband Zach Sabbath. Now, I don't know much about anyone from RCW, but I've seen a few Zach Sabbath matches. Every single one I've seen has been an intergender match with him against a woman. He even had one against Demi Bennett back in the day, or more commonly known these days, Rhea Bloody Ripley. There was a match for the Emerald Crown title between the current champ, Super Sigma, and Hugh Beauty, which is just an iconic name for an Aussie cricketer gimmick. Sigma was the heel, so he was getting booed out of the building. Then Hugh Beauty comes out and the crowd starts chanting, "Aussie, Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi, oi," really loud and cheering for Hugh. Then Sigma just looks out into the crowd and shrugs and goes, "I'm Australian too." Like, yeah, it's an Australian wrestling promotion. Of course he is. I don't know, it just took me by surprise and it made me laugh. And of course, we can't talk about Riot City Rumble without talking about the Riot City Rumble match. For any wrestling fans out there, you can probably guess what this is. It's an over-the-top battle royal match. 30 wrestlers come out in timed intervals, and the aim is to throw your opponents out the ring over the top rope. Whoever is the last in the ring wins and gets a guaranteed match against the RCW champion. The only thing to note with this match, compared to the WWE's Royal Rumble, is that it's an intergender rumble, so the men and the women are competing in the same match. This match went for 55 minutes, but I tell you what, being there in person, it did not feel that way. I was locked in right from the start and I could not look away. The time just flew by. I was keenly keeping an eye out because I knew my friend who wrestles under the name of Chasm was in this match. When the timer reached 0 yet again and out came my mate, that was really awesome to see. He put in a solid effort and got off some really good offense, but unfortunately he didn't last too long before being sent over the top rope. A while into the match, out came someone I thought looked a little familiar. Then Danny tapped me on the shoulder, telling me it was her cousin Damien. She wasn't even sure if he was still wrestling. He'd been a part of RCW for so long now, and they don't keep in regular contact. He came out and put on a great performance. He's a lot smaller than most of the other guys in the ring, but he plays a really great comedic small guy role, and he was still able to get in some good offense as well, which is just great to see. Before we knew it, it was down to the final two. Dean Brady, an intimidating beast of a man to see in person, he'd been absolutely dominating the match and gotten the majority of the eliminations. His opponent was Red Smash, a masked highflyer who had been in since the very start of the match. He'd been doing really well the entire match. He was the babyface that the crowd wanted to win, while Brady was the monster heel. It felt like Red Smash had an impossible task. How could he possibly take out Dean Brady? Well, after a few more minutes of one-on-one offense, unfortunately Brady, with one last gasp of energy, managed to reverse Red's attempt to throw him over the top rope. And in the blink of an eye, there was a new RCW Rumble winner, Dean Brady. I had a feeling he was going to win. It felt that way during most of the match, but it was far from a sure thing, so the suddenness of the ending really caught me off guard. Overall, it was a really great night. I'm so glad that we decided to go. I don't think it'll be the last Riot City event I go to either. If you're a fan of wrestling and you've never been to any of your local indie promotion events, I highly recommend it.
I have had Hollow Knight in my Steam library since October 6th, 2017. I finished Hollow Knight for the first time October 17th, 2025.
I have a habit of not sticking to video games, regardless of how good they are. I jump around constantly. I'll often have 3 or 4 games on the go at once and just swap between them. Often this leads to me forgetting about one of them and not finishing it. This is something I've actively been working on changing this year. I want to fully experience the games I buy, not just play them once and then put them away for good. This year, I managed to finish 12 games. Well, 12 games I remembered to put in my backlog to count anyway. Admittedly, a lot of these games were pretty short, just a few hours in length, but still, progress is progress.
I've tried playing Hollow Knight maybe 5 or 6 times over the years, never getting more than like 4 hours into a playthrough before some shiny new game pulls me away.
My final playtime on Hollow Knight was 17 hours over 4.5 weeks. But this felt like a huge achievement to stick through the game right to the end, even though I loved playing the game the whole time, obviously, or it wouldn't be on my top things of 2025 list. I've always felt a strong connection to Hollow Knight. Being developed by a small indie studio from Adelaide where I've lived for most of my adult life, as someone who's always been interested in game development, but never able to commit to actually finishing a game, I felt a huge sense of pride for Team Cherry. I also love 2D platformers, so surely this game was going to be an easy sell for me. Although until recently, I had not really gotten into Metroidvanias. That's changed now though, they're one of my favourite genres of games. And the best of the best is of course Hollow Knight. No, I haven't played Silksong yet, so maybe that's better, I don't know. I'm going to keep this section fairly short because I'm actually partway through writing a video covering indie games from Australia, and that goes deep into Hollow Knight. But if you've been living under a rock and don't know what it is, Hollow Knight is a 2D Metroidvania in which you play as a nameless insect warrior. People often just refer to him as the Knight though. You explore an underground kingdom called Hallownest that has been overrun with an infection, which is controlling many of the bugs living within Hallownest. The ultimate goal of Hollow Knight is defeating 3 bugs called the Dreamers, who are living seals to a door blocking access to the Temple of the Black Egg. The final boss lies within the Temple of the Black Egg and is the source of the infection that is plaguing Hallownest. Obviously, it's not as simple as just beating 3 enemies and the final boss. You'll need to explore the entirety of Hallownest, defeating other bosses along the way to learn new abilities. These abilities can help you to access new areas within Hallownest. You know, your general Metroidvania progression loop. So why did Hollow Knight hit so hard with me? Why is it on the list? Honestly, I haven't really sat down to think about why. It's just a gut feeling. I guess I'd better try though. The music. Oh my god, the music. I've been listening to the soundtrack for years, before I ever really got into the game. Christopher Larkin went so hard on this soundtrack. I am a sucker for a beautiful orchestral arrangement. I'm also an even bigger sucker for a beautiful piano piece. Listen to this snippet from the song Dirtmouth and try to tell me it's not one of the most beautiful pieces of music you've ever heard. Not only is the music outstanding, but the atmosphere it creates within Hallownest is phenomenal. Walking through the crossroads, hearing the eerie strings droning in the background fills you with a sense of unease. Then a fight breaks out and the song kicks it up a notch with these stabbing violins. Ugh, I just love it. I struggle putting into words why I like music, which is frustrating since I'm a musician, but it's just one of those things. I feel it deep in my soul. I just don't know enough theory to know why I feel this way. I just do. The other big reason I love Hollow Knight is the combat. It's difficult, but it always feels fair. There was never a time while I was playing that I thought to myself, oh, I'm never gonna beat this boss, I should just give up. There were plenty of times I felt on edge, on my last bit of health, trying desperately to make my way back to a bench to save and heal, hoping that I wouldn't get hit. I didn't want to have to make the arduous death run back to recover all my hard-earned geo if I ever died. I loved the feeling of tension I got when I played this game, but never did it boil over into full-blown stress. I could go on for ages talking about every little thing I loved about my experience with playing Hollow Knight, but I'll save that for this upcoming video, I think. There is just one more thing, or one more character rather, that I wanted to highlight. This poor woman here, stuck working behind the counter of a shop, most likely one with very little foot traffic, just counting down the minutes until she can knock off for the day. I can relate. I often felt that way when I worked at a small, quiet bottle-o. And of course, this iconic sound clip.
Papanada.
I was sighing and saying, ah, papanada, for weeks after I'd finished the game. I felt those words deep in my soul.
I started reading Dan to Dan sometime in 2024, and I was really enjoying it, more than a lot of other manga I was reading at the time. Eventually though, I was all caught up, so I thought to myself, I'll give it some time, build up a bit of a backlog and then I'll get back to it. That never happened. I've not read any more Dan to Dan since.
On October 4th of 2024, the first episode of the Dan to Dan anime adaptation released, which I was hyped for. I loved the manga, so surely the anime was going to be great. I watched about 10 minutes of the first episode and went, it's kinda too anime for me. At the time, I hadn't been watching much anime. None at all since I was a teenager, really. While watching it, it just kind of felt pervy. There were too many. I was a little off-put by it all, so I didn't keep watching. A while later, I was home from work for the week, sick with the dreaded sick. You know the one. I decided maybe I should try again. I was definitely being way too harsh on the show. I watched the whole first season over the next 2 days, and I loved it. Once I actually sat down and gave it a chance and let myself enjoy the show, I started to remember why I enjoyed anime when I was younger. I ended up getting really invested in the show. It wasn't up there as one of my favorite shows of all time or anything, but I really, really enjoyed it. I'm glad I watched it. July 4th, 2025. The first episode of Dan to Dan Season 2 was released. I wasn't even aware a second season was in the works. I had just hopped onto my exercise bike and I was putting on the TV looking for something to watch when I saw that Dan to Dan was on my list with a new episode. I suppose before I continue I should give you a quick rundown of what Dan to Dan actually is. It's an anime that follows two high schoolers, Okarun and Momo. Initially, Okarun is a huge fan of all things cryptid and extraterrestrial, but he does not believe in ghosts. While Momo believes in ghosts, spirits and demons, but she thinks that all the things that Okarun believe in are ridiculous. They end up forming an unlikely friendship after Okarun is possessed by a powerful spirit and gains supernatural abilities, and then Momo is abducted by aliens who accidentally unlock her latent psychic abilities. From here the story follows the two as they team up with other schoolmates and family members to combat both spiritual and extraterrestrial enemies. That's a fairly quick, spoiler-free rundown of the show anyway. It doesn't sound that special, but what really does it for me is the relationship dynamic between the characters. They feel so genuine, and the characters are incredibly lovable. Even the annoying ones like Kinta have a certain charm to them. Season 2 is on my list of the best things for 2025, partially because I watched Season 1 in 2024. But regardless, if I had to pick a favourite season, it'd definitely be Season 2. I looked forward to every Saturday when a new episode was released. I could just sit down and enjoy the show for 20 minutes, not a care in the world until it was over. I haven't felt that way with many shows lately. It made me feel like a kid again. Like when I would be excited to sit down and watch the latest episode of Dragon Ball Z every week. Because this is Season 2 specific, it's hard to get into too much detail without spoiling things, especially for anyone who hasn't even seen Season 1 yet, so I'll just keep this brief. I'm happy that Gigi starts to get a bigger role in the team dynamic this season. He's such a fun goofball of a character, and the relationship dynamic between him, Okarun and Momo is a lot of fun to see play out. With him being oblivious to the intricacies of it all, he's just happy to have some friends to hang out with. The almost begrudging friendship that starts to form between Ira and Momo made me smile a lot. They still hate each other most of the time, but every now and then you just get to see the smallest inklings of a friendship blossoming beneath the surface. I know it's all very cliche, but I don't know, I'm kind of a sucker for that reluctant friendship storyline. They also really toned down the creepy pervy alien stuff from Season 1, which I am very happy about personally. I'm not a fan of the overly horny, creepy anime tropes. I find it a bit off-putting. Plus, it's always during the creepiest, weirdest scenes that someone's gonna walk in on you watching. It's never during a nice, wholesome scene. Oh, and most importantly, there's an episode with a kaiju vs mecha battle. Do I need to say anything else? That episode rules.
Look at my arm. I like Dragon Ball a lot. When I heard about Dragon Ball Daima, I had two thoughts. Holy shit, yes, new Dragon Ball, I can't wait. And then, why aren't they continuing Dragon Ball Super? There's more that we haven't seen yet. There's the Moro arc, and the Planet Cereal arc, they were amazing in the manga. Why aren't they making them into the anime?
Obviously, the excitement of any new Dragon Ball won over any disappointment by a large margin. Then I saw the trailer. They're turning them into kids again? Okay, don't panic. Just because GT was kind of meh, doesn't mean that this is going to suffer the same fate. I mean, they're using the same idea because they know GT was a flop, and they want to give this idea a fair shot, right? Then I waited. And waited. Then, I kind of just stopped thinking about it. Until October of 2024, when I found out that the first episode would be coming out in just over a week, on the 11th.
Yes, you did hear that correctly. The first episode of Dragon Ball Daima came out on October 11th, 2024, and I watched it on release day. But it's in my best things of 2025? Well, you see, I forgot. I just forgot when I watched it. It's too bad. I thought it came out in 2025, and I'm already like halfway through writing this part of the script, so it's staying in. I mean, in my defense, 7 of the 20 episodes did come out in 2025, and I watched them in 2025, so...
So what is Dragon Ball Daima? Well, for starters, it's the last Dragon Ball anime to ever be written by the legendary Akira Toriyama, before his unfortunate passing in March of 2024. With some heavy retconning, as with most Dragon Ball media these days. Daima takes place between the ending of Dragon Ball Z and the beginning of Dragon Ball Super. The Demon King Dabura was killed during the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z, so a new Demon King had to be crowned. In the very first episode, we meet the new Demon King, Goma, a far cry from the intimidating force that was Dabura. Goma seems much more like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. Goma gets panicked after watching footage of the Z-Warriors battle with Buu, who worries that they may pose a threat to the demon realm. Aransu pops in to ask Goma something in the middle of all this, and then suggests that maybe he should gather all the Dragon Balls. Then he can wish for them all to be turned back into children, so that they will pose no threat to the demon realm. So to cut a long story short, the Dragon Balls are stolen from Earth, and in the process, Earth's guardian Dende tries to stop them, but he gets knocked out and kidnapped. The first episode ends with the Z-Warriors being turned into children. From here, the story follows their adventures through the 3 worlds of the Demon Realm in order to rescue Dende, while collecting the Demon Realm's Dragon Balls along the way to turn themselves back into adults. A somewhat similar premise to the first season of Dragon Ball GT, but with enough changes to keep it legally distinct. Like in Daima, everyone's a kid, not just Goku. Dragon Ball Daima is the first Dragon Ball series I've watched in Japanese, purely for the fact that I could not wait for the English dub. And lucky I didn't, because the English dub only finished up on November 2nd, so I would have been waiting a long time. It did take a little bit of getting used to. I know the English voice actors really well, and everyone sounds so different in Japanese, obviously. But I'd say that after the first episode, I didn't even really notice anymore. I said in the Dun-Da-Dun segment that it made me feel like a kid again, being excited every Saturday morning to watch the next episode. This was that same feeling, but multiplied by 10. Every Saturday morning I'd hop on my treadmill and I'd load up this week's episode of Daima. It's really nice to have those weekly rituals, I've noticed. I hated that I had to wait a week between episodes, but it really made each episode feel special, like an event. I don't think Daima would have been quite as special to me if I'd just binged it all in a day. Having the opening theme be so good definitely helped with the building up of excitement every time I'd watch a new episode. The song was a collaboration between the German producer Zed and a Japanese vocal duo of C and K. It's definitely not the kind of music I'd usually be drawn to.
This is about shooting blood. It's about shooting blood from your cock.
But there's just something about Zed's production style that really works for me. It really sticks in your head for ages after you hear it. The world building in Daima was a huge positive. It was a nice change of pace to not be set on Earth yet again. Instead focusing on the Demon Realm, something we'd heard mention of but never really seen before. Having the realm split into 3 different worlds was a great way to not only help show the progress the characters have made on their journey, but to keep things feeling fresh as well. I hope in future Dragon Ball media we get to see more of the Demon Realm. 20 episodes felt like only enough time to start scratching the surface of what the Demon Realm could contain. I guess it's time to address the elephant in the room, the pacing. There was a lot of discussion around the pacing of Daima, with the general consensus being that it somehow felt simultaneously too sluggish and too rushed. There were a number of episodes where it felt like nothing really progressed in the story, but being only 20 episodes, when things did progress, it felt like they were zooming through some parts of the story. I generally agree with that, but I don't feel like it hampered my enjoyment of the show too much. I think the show could have benefited from maybe another 10 episodes. That way they could have spent more time on these smaller, self-contained adventures that didn't feel like they were progressing the story too much, without feeling like it was going to impact the overall narrative pace in a negative way. An episode I remember really stood out to me was the one where the ship crash landed on a planet inhabited by giants. The whole episode was just a group exploring the planet, fending off some angry giants, and Bulma trying her hardest to repair the ship. At the end of the episode, nothing had really progressed in the story. They fixed the ship and they continued on their journey. It felt like a small, self-contained, almost filler episode. I really loved that episode, but having one of the precious few episodes taken up with something that didn't really move the story at all, it kind of felt wrong. And of course, this leads me to the other major issue that everyone had with the show. Why the hell did their ship crash land like 5 times in a 20 episode series? It just felt way too convenient to the story. Like they couldn't think of another way to halt their progress other than to have their ship malfunction and crash. Again, that's not something that really took away my enjoyment of the show. It was just silly. I could go on and on about Dragon Ball for days. But I'll wrap it up here. Watching Dragon Ball Daima once a week for 20 weeks was incredibly special to me, even if it was only for 25 minutes on a Saturday morning.
I have been putting off writing this part of the video. Writing about Mother 3 is intimidating. It's a really beloved game. I'm kind of worried I'm not going to be able to do it justice.
Versus Wolves released an episode called Mother 3 vs Gunpla, and I knew that the time had finally come. I needed to play Mother 3. I refused to be spoiled about anything involving that game, even if that meant having to take an extended break from my favourite podcast to do so.
Holy shit, I am so glad that I played Mother 3.
I have never beaten Earthbound. I've barely even played more than an hour of Earthbound. Not because I don't like it, but because my attention span is terrible. I have had almost everything about Earthbound spoiled for me, which makes me less interested to rush out and play it. But it's still on my list. I will get there one day. Mother 3 is the sequel to Earthbound. If you're confused by that sudden jump in topic, you don't need to have played Earthbound to enjoy or understand the story of Mother 3. There is some continuity, but the game follows a completely new cast of characters, and if you didn't know any better, you could just think it was a standalone game. You know, if you ignore that big old 3 at the end of the title, I guess. Mother 3 is a JRPG that, for the most part, follows our protagonist Lucas. You know, the NES clone from Smash Bros. Well, I say for the most part, but now that I think about it, for almost half the game, that's actually not the case. The game is split up into chapters, and for the first chapter, you're actually playing as Lucas's dad, Flint. You head out into the woods in search of Lucas, Lucas's younger brother Klaus, and their mother, Hinawa. Chapter 2 puts you in control of a young thief with a limp, Duster. For some reason in my playthrough, I changed his name to Dusty. I don't know. He has been asked by his dickhead of a father, Wes, to break into the Sohei castle and steal a very important artifact. Can I just say, I love Duster, and I hate how much Wes belittles him. Like, what kind of a father constantly calls their physically disabled son a moron and an idiot? Wes sucks. Chapter 3 changes characters yet again. Now you're in control of an awful man named Facade and his captive, Salsa the monkey. It's pretty interesting that this game actually gets you to play as one of the bad guys for a whole chapter to see their side of the story. I found that to be really unique, not something I can remember coming across in other games. I know I said I hate Wes, but compared to Facade, he's a saint. Poor Salsa is stuck wearing a shock collar, and throughout this chapter, Facade is repeatedly shown shocking poor Salsa anytime he does anything Facade doesn't like, or sometimes just for the amusement of Facade. I connected so deeply with the characters in the world of Mother 3 that anytime something bad happened to poor Salsa, I felt genuine anger, like if someone had hurt a real monkey. From chapter 4 through to the last chapter, chapter 8, you're finally in control of Lucas, as well as a rotating party of characters including Duster, Salsa, and Kumatora, who we ran back into in chapter 2 while playing as Dusty. See, I did it again. The script says Dusty, but his name's actually Duster, but because I changed his name to Dusty for no reason, I just keep thinking of him as Dusty. I'm trying to be intentionally vague on a lot of this description, as I think the best way to play this game is with as little knowledge as possible. There are some really intense emotional moments throughout the game, and when you're not expecting them, man do they hit hard. The story is an interesting one, as at the start of the game, it's really kind of hard to tell where the story's going. It just feels like you're playing these small, barely interconnected stories that change up each chapter. It's really not until chapter 7 that you can tell what the final goal of the game actually is, and you can start to see where things are going to end up. I love that. It keeps things interesting and intriguing the entire way through with lots of twists and turns. Combat in Mother 3 is turn-based, much like in Earthbound. You can select attack, you can use an item, defend, run away, or you can use an ability. Some characters like Duster and Salsa have abilities relating to them as characters. Like Duster can use his big staples to staple an enemy to a wall and make him skip a few turns. Or Salsa can do a silly little dance and distract the enemies. Then there are characters with Psi abilities, or PSI abilities? I'm going to say Psi. Psi abilities are essentially psychic magic in the game. You can use thunder, fire, and ice spells, as well as abilities to lower enemy stats or put them to sleep. There are two things that separate Mother 3 from most other turn-based RPGs. One is the rolling health bar. When you take damage, your health bar starts rolling down. If you take more damage than the amount of health you have left, you don't necessarily lose right away. You can mash through the menus and quickly locate a healing item or a spell to heal your characters. If your turn goes through before the health bar rolls down to 0, you're actually able to heal back up, avoiding a loss. The other unique mechanic is the rhythm mechanic. Every enemy has a unique heartbeat rhythm, and you can tap A to it in time after you attack. If you get the rhythm down, you can hit multiple times with a single attack, all the way up to 16 times in a row. I found this system to be very difficult. I'm pretty good at rhythm games, but I felt like even when I was tapping to the beat a lot of the time, it just didn't register the timing correctly. For the most part, I just ignored this mechanic and treated it as a little bonus when it occasionally did work. You can totally beat the entire game without taking advantage of those extra hits at all. It wasn't until I was listening to the Versus Wolves episode on Mother 3 after I'd beaten the game that I learnt that there's an issue with the emulation for this game, leading to the rhythm sections just not working correctly. It wasn't a me issue, it was the game! That's the other thing. This game has never been localized into English, but some amazing people out there have translated the entire game into English, so you can play it on any emulator with an English patch. I for one played through the whole game on my Steam Deck and loved the experience. Which also means I didn't get any screen recordings of my gameplay, so now I actually have to go through and play again to try and get some screen recordings. What a pain. This was the first game that I've stuck to and played through from start to finish without constantly jumping over to other games in a very, very long time. Like probably the last 8 years at least, and it felt amazing. I was having so much fun with this game. I wasn't even really thinking about other games I could be playing. I just wanted to see what would happen next in the story. The extra push of wanting to listen to a little more Versus Wolves probably helped a little too, I think. The feeling of accomplishment I felt when I finally finished Mother 3, alongside the insanely emotional climax to the story, was a hell of a feeling. Something I won't soon forget. I legitimately teared up. I won't mention anything about the ending at all. Let's just say, I didn't see that twist coming. A lot of people probably figured out the twist, but somehow I didn't. And that made it way more impactful. Just an amazing game. Absolutely one of my favorite games of all time.
I can honestly say that I did not expect one of my favourite shows of the year to be a British game show that's been around for 10 years.
It was either early this year or late last year. Keisha, the singer of Spaghetti Death Trap, asked me if I'd watched Taskmaster. I said I'd never even heard of it. She really hyped it up and I thought, maybe I should give this a go. But I didn't. Sometime later, my friend Sam from work mentioned she'd also started watching it and she was really hyping it up too. So I added it to my watch list, but didn't immediately go and watch it. One night, Danny and I were on the couch trying to find a new show to watch. We just finished season 2 of Severance.
Oh my god, another amazing show that I forgot we watched this year. Probably should have added it to the list, honestly, but oh well, it's too late now.
Anyway, we weren't in the mood to start something too full on this night. We were both exhausted, so we decided maybe we should finally try Taskmaster. Danny had been seeing clips online from season 19 with Jason Mantzoukas, who we both love, so she was pretty keen to start watching it. We decided we'd start on season 19, which had only aired 2 or 3 episodes at that time.
Before I go any further, I guess I should probably explain what Taskmaster is, for anyone who hasn't seen it before.
Taskmaster is the brainchild of comedian Alex Horn. It's a game show in which 5 comedians or actors compete in a series of ridiculous challenges. The show is hosted by Greg Davies, who plays the Taskmaster, and Alex Horn, who plays the Taskmaster's assistant. Each episode starts out in the studio, on stage, with the contestants being asked to bring in a prize relating to a certain category. Some of my favourite examples are Season 11's Something That Makes You Look Tough, after seeing a baseball bat with a nail in it, a leather cap, a coat hanger to wear on your head so people think you're too crazy to mug, and a backpack with apocalypse supplies. We got this glorious sight. Mike Wozniak brings in a mohawk wig, only to reveal he's also given himself a mohawk, much to the delight of everyone on set. Another iconic one was the most powerful smell, which gave us such joys as smelly perm lotion, smell from pulling a stalk out of a tomato, which got a well-deserved 1 point, custom cologne called Greg Davies All Over Your Neck, apple cider vinegar, and, of course, somebody had to do it, a fart in a jar. And just one more because I love reminiscing about this show. The best thing that's been inside of you, with prizes such as a lung, a Jamaican oxtail dish, a USB containing photos of Emma Cedi's ex-partner, an old disgusting toothbrush that Jack D said he's been using for 10 years now. I don't remember who won, so maybe Jack finally had to go get a new toothbrush. Hopefully. And lastly, this prize had me laughing so incredibly hard. I think it's partially Rosie's delivery, but also just the absolute absurdity of it. The 5 prizes are scored between 1 and 5, which is added to their point total for both the episode and the series. At the end of each episode, the contestant with the highest score for that episode gets to take home all 5 prizes. Although I think in some cases, they probably end up giving them back to the person who brought them in. Like in the episode where Ramesh Ranganathan brought in his wedding ring as a prize and did not win the episode. After the prize task, we move on to the first pre-recorded task of the episode. These usually take place in the Taskmaster house, or sometimes out in another specific location which changes in each season. One season, it was an empty airport, another was at Chesham United's football stadium. These tasks are filmed weeks, or sometimes even months in advance. The contestants aren't shown any footage until the day they record the episode in their studio, so that you can get a genuine reaction from everybody as they relive their often very ridiculous decisions. The tasks vary wildly. There are weird ones, like in Season 19's Answer the Cheese Phone. Every time you move, Alex will play the French horn. If you choose to only use your sense of smell, Alex will not play the French horn, and your final time will be halved. There are also simple ones like, do something that will look impressive in reverse, or create the best looking and most delicious mask entirely out of food. They may be simple premises, but they often lead to hilarious results. Some of my favourite tasks are the ones in which the contestants are asked to do something creative that ends up with everyone having something like a short film to show off at the end.
I'm pretty sure I worded that really poorly, so if that didn't make sense, let me show you an example.
Write a 1-minute, one-person play. Then another contestant must perform this play. Seeing the open-ended creativity of tasks like this has led to some hilarious results. Episodes generally have 3 pre-recorded tasks, and occasionally there will also be a team task. The group of 5 is split up into 2 teams, a team of 2 and a team of 3, which does seem a little unfair, but usually they make it work. These are always interesting because sometimes the teams get on like a house on fire. They're instantly on the same page. Other times, not so much. Like in Season 8, with the team of Ian Sterling, Lou Sanders, and Paul Sinha. Ian would never listen to Lou's ideas, being very rude and dismissive, much to his dismay when he watched it back in the studio. He was a real dick in those tasks, not a good team player at all. The last task of each episode is done on stage live in the studio, and they're usually a bit simpler than the pre-recorded tasks, such as predict whether an item will create a higher or lower number of decibels than the previous item, or stack the most bowls and plates on your head. You must stack them one at a time. Also, you must stand upright when you stack. Also, you may not touch a bowl or a plate that is already stacked. Also, you must stack the bowls and plates alternately. Also, you must stay standing on your spot the entire time. At the end of the series, the scores are tallied up and the winner gets to go home with the golden head of Greg Davies. So, that's Taskmaster in a nutshell.
This show really became me and Danny's comfort show this year. Pretty much every night, we would sit down and watch at least 1 episode before bed. If we'd had a particularly rough day, we might sit down and watch 2 or 3 episodes and just veg out for the night.
After we'd gotten through maybe 5 seasons, we were sitting on the couch one night and Danny said, I kind of feel like we should watch something other than Taskmaster. We have this big list of shows we want to watch, but all we watch is Taskmaster. But I just want to watch more Taskmaster tonight. I laughed and agreed. Nothing else was as appealing as just putting on another episode of Taskmaster. Not a lot of shows make me really laugh out loud, but this one does multiple times every episode. So this year, Danny and I watched all 20 seasons, starting at 19 and going backwards until we reached season 1. Then we went back to watch season 20 as it was airing. Oh, and we also watched the Champion of Champions specials. There's not a lot of shows that I could watch that much of and not get sick of, but man, I wish I had more Taskmaster to watch.
If you'll recall, at the start of this video, I talked about my friend Luke asking me to play a part in his film, The Household. Well, this year, we've decided to start working on a film together, and I'm playing a much larger role in this film.
Almost the entire script was done by Luke, with him just bouncing ideas off me throughout the process. I didn't actually write any myself though. My big role in the film comes more on screen, as I am the lead actor in the film.
Crazy, right?
A big part of this came from Luke finding it hard dealing with the organisation of so many different people when he needed to film a scene. Trying to organise a time when everyone is free for a few hours can be tough when all your actors are just friends and family who aren't doing this for a job. The movie was written around the idea that the majority of it could be filmed with just me and Luke, with some help from his partner Anna whenever we needed an extra set of hands. Oh, and my partner Danny one time too when we needed even more hands on set. The end result is a movie that for almost the entire runtime has no one else on screen except for me. Which I know does sound pretty bloody terrible, but I promise, it's a really interesting concept and a lot of visual intrigue to keep it from getting stale. The movie is called Sleep Lessons, and it follows my character David suffering through the worst time of his life, while also suffering through being haunted. The film opens with him going around his house, setting up cameras in every room and documenting the process with a handheld video camera. It gives the impression of a paranoid man who needs to monitor every room in his house. The extra handy cam just adds to that paranoia. What if something happened to the mounted cameras and no one believes me about the haunting? Better document me setting them up too. We also did that because initially this was going to be an entirely found footage film like his last movie, but we've kind of gone more cinematic for a lot of it, so it's a leftover relic of that. But it works. Not long after, all the lights in the house blow. David is out of light globes at this point. We can assume this isn't the first time it's happened. So, he resorts to some coloured Christmas lights he's got lying around to get by in the meantime. This was a very deliberate choice by us, as we wanted the lighting to be an interesting focal point of the movie. You can see in the footage playing that every scene has a very intense coloured lighting. I love the unease that the unusual lighting can add to an otherwise simple scene. A lot of the movie takes place in David's bedroom, so we went with a red light for that room because, you know, red, spooky, evil, all that jazz.
I'm gonna leave the rundown there. Super vague, I know, but this is the kind of film that it really benefits going in blind, so I really don't want to give too much away.
I'd say at the time of me writing this, we filmed maybe 65% of the shots we need for the movie, and Luke is doing a rough edit as we go, so we're hoping to try and get it out early to mid next year. It's really hard to estimate though, as everything is of course taking way longer than we were expecting. Not only that, but almost the entire movie takes place at night time, so we can only film at night after work or on weekends. Now in Australia, it's also daylight savings, so it doesn't start getting dark until at least 8 PM, which does not leave a lot of time for filming when we need to be up for work at 6 AM the next day. We are getting through it though, slow and steady. We'll get there.
Even though this is in my list of the best things of 2025, it's definitely not always fun. There are days when it feels like a bit of a chore, but only because we do this after work. So having an 8-hour workday and then spending at least 2 to 3 hours filming at night, it can be kind of exhausting.
Overall though, I love the process and I'm really honoured to be a part of something so cool. Seeing it slowly come together with little bits added to the edit after each filming session, you can really start to see the vision coming to life and it makes it all worth it. I often find it hard to commit to things long term, as I just lose interest or it gets too hard and I bail. So having Luke to keep me accountable has been really great. I cannot imagine the frustration if he'd put in all this work for me to just say in the final stretch, I'm really over this, I can't do it anymore. That really helps me keep going on those nights when I just want to lay on the couch and watch TV instead of going out to film. I'm so excited to see the final product. I have really high hopes for this, genuinely. If you're into atmospheric, spooky horror movies with some emotional gut punches, I think you'll really enjoy it too. We're even talking about renting out one of our local cinemas to do a one-off screening, which just sounds insane. I never thought my life would lead me into an opportunity like that, but here we are. The immense satisfaction I feel from being a part of this, and the actual genuine enjoyment I get most of the time from the actual filming process. Getting to hang out and create something special with one of my best friends is reason enough for this to be so high on my list of favourite things of the year.
A few years ago, my partner Danny and I started a new tradition. Every year in February, we would go on a holiday, even if it was just like a 3-day weekend away.
We decided to start doing this because in February there's my birthday, her birthday, Valentine's Day, and our anniversary. So it was getting difficult to try and plan all these things for all of those events as they're super close together. So now we just have a barbecue with our friends at home for our birthday celebration, and then we go away for a weekend together. This year, we didn't go far. We went down to a small town just outside of Adelaide called Victor Harbour. It's only about an hour and a half from home, but that didn't matter. It's just about getting out and spending time together.
Since we started this tradition, it's something I really look forward to every year.
In Victor Harbour, we got a room at the country club.
Ooh, so fancy. I know.
We got it for a pretty good deal, honestly, and for some reason we even got upgraded to a free room with a balcony overlooking the golf course. It was awesome just waking up, stepping out onto the balcony with a coffee and watching the early birds putt around on the practice green right below us. Although usually we were more interested in watching the ducks and the magpies wandering around the golf course. They were so cute. While we were in Victor Harbour for the weekend, we took a day to go to Granite Island just off of the coast. You can either walk or catch a horse-drawn tram to go along the jetty to get there, which of course we had to try. We had a nice walk around the island, hoping to see some penguins. Granite Island is one of the very few places in Australia that you can see penguins. There's a colony of little penguins on the island. Yes, that's actually the species name, little penguins. I was really hoping to see some, but unfortunately, after an hour or more of walking around the island, we didn't see a single one. Another day, we checked out the whale centre, which is pretty cool. They have this massive whale skull and vertebrae on display, and you just don't realise how huge they are until we see them in person. There wasn't a whole lot to look at there if you didn't want to do a ton of reading though, and we were feeling pretty lazy. I didn't have my glasses on, so we moved on to the museum. It was interesting to look around the museum. They had a heap of history on the town as a whaling community, which is super depressing actually, but they had some really great exhibits on display. Worth a look.
And to top it off, we got this cute little pelican, and I got a pelican pin for my jacket from the gift shop on the way out.
Oh, and I just remembered, on the way into town, we stopped at the Urrumbira Wildlife Park, which was awesome. We got to hand feed a bunch of chill as hell kangaroos, and we got some photos with a sleepy koala. Other than that, we just spent a lot of time relaxing at the hotel, looking around town. We checked out a market, and we ate a lot of great food, which is my favourite part of a good holiday.
So, although there's not a whole lot to talk about with this entry, it does make it right near the top of my list, because there's nothing better than spending time with the person I love the most. Just a nice weekend away, experiencing some new things. Nothing better. Well, I guess there is one thing better, since this is number 2 on the list. There's still a number 1 to come. When I was 13, one of my friends gave me a bunch of burnt CDs. He knew I was starting to get into heavy music, but hadn't been exposed to a whole lot yet. At the time, I was listening to Black Sabbath and Linkin Park. Very heavy, I know. One of the CDs he gave me was I Killed the Prom Queen's Music for the Recently Deceased, and I truly think that that was a turning point in my life.
When I was 18, I was in many ways still just an anxious kid. Didn't like going out by myself. Large crowds made me nervous to the point that I would avoid them at all costs. When my cousin Serena let me know that I Killed the Prom Queen were playing a show in Adelaide and she wanted to go, I had a choice to make. I mustered up the courage to leave my hometown, hop on a 7-hour bus ride to the nearest capital city, Adelaide, to see my favourite band in their hometown. This was the first live music show I ever went to as far as I can remember. There weren't a whole lot of opportunities for me to see big bands in my hometown, not without travelling to Adelaide, which, when I was younger, I just couldn't bring myself to do. That night, I got to see I Killed the Prom Queen perform so many of my favourite songs. The band had been through a few vocalists by this point. This tour featured a new vocalist, Jamie Hope. Jamie is incredibly talented. but I had spent years listening to the albums that featured their original vocalist Michael Crafter and then his replacement Ed Butcher. Hearing a new vocalist put his own spin on the song was cool, but it just felt like there was something missing. I did, however, convince Serena and her partner at the time to make our way to the venue early for a meet and greet, so I got to meet the band.
And they signed my copy of Music for the Recently Deceased. No, not the burnt copy from when I was 13. I did buy my own copy eventually.
A couple of years later, the band went on a bit of an indefinite hiatus. Figured that was the end of the band. I'd never get the opportunity to see them live again. At least I saw them once though, right? Fast forward to 2021. I see a post on the band's Facebook page letting fans know that Sean Kennedy, the bassist during the band's early days and rise to fame, had taken his own life. Shit. That hit hard, and my hopes of seeing the band perform with the lineup I most fondly remembered were dashed. With Sean's tragic passing, there was no shot the band was getting back together, and they definitely wouldn't bring back Crafter, right? I sure as shit knew I'd never see him perform with Ed either. There was a lot of animosity there. He did not leave on good terms, and he's disappeared from the music scene entirely since. Well, in September of 2024, I saw an Instagram post from the band, a little teaser. It looked like maybe there was some hope for a reunion after all.
After the excitement wore off, I just kind of forgot about the post after a while. There wasn't much more talk about a reunion after that.
That was until April of 2025. The band announced they'd be doing an Australian tour, performing all their hits from 2000 to 2008. So all of my favourites. Not only that, but they were getting Crafter back on vocals. Holy shit! But how could that happen without Sean? And what about Jamie? Well, Jamie took over the role of bassist for this tour. I was ecstatic. I could not believe it. Legit, a dream come true. I asked a few of my good friends if they wanted to go with me and got a resounding nah. They either didn't have the money, or they were busy, or just not that interested. I asked my girlfriend Danny, and she wasn't overly interested. She didn't really listen to Prom Queen, and the tickets were more than she wanted to spend on a band she'd never been into. Now what? I had a decision to make. Go alone? Or don't go at all. Being a moderately less anxious 32-year-old man, I decided, screw it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I've never gone to a gig alone before. Maybe now's that time. So, I bought myself a ticket. I got to the venue 15 minutes before doors so I could secure myself a good spot. The venue has this kind of tiered floor. So there's the main floor, then a step up a few feet with a barrier in front, and the sound desk in the middle. Then another step up about 5 feet high with another barrier. And then there's also the second story balcony as well. Since I'm a frail old man of 32 at this point, I opted for the first tier off of the main floor, so I could lean against the barrier, and it also meant that I didn't need to worry about tall people blocking my view. The opening band was a female-fronted hardcore band called Threshold from Melbourne. They were great. Not a band I'd heard of before this show, but one I've listened to a lot since. Next up was To The Grave, a deathcore band from Sydney. The singer came out in this gritty looking pig mask and I thought, okay, they're just going for that tough guy deathcore look, I guess. It's a little corny, but if I'm being honest, it does look kind of cool. Turns out I wasn't entirely correct. To The Grave are a vegan animal activist deathcore band. Their songs are all about the cruelties of the meat industry and the harsh conditions that animals are kept in, hence the angry pig mask. To The Grave went hard. It's been a while since I've seen a deathcore band live in a big venue, and this reminded me of the appeal of these kind of bands. The bass was so intense the floor was rumbling even up on the higher tiers of the venue. The last opening band was the American deathcore, metalcore-ish band Amur. I've known of Amur for years. I had their second album, The Respect Issue, from 2008 on my iPod way back then. But I didn't really listen to them a whole lot. I just couldn't really get into them. Seeing them live was really cool though, regardless. I can definitely see the appeal, and I think if I knew their songs better, it would have been awesome. They really got the crowd involved in crowd chants and sing-alongs, but like I said, I didn't know the words, so I just sat back and enjoyed the show. Finally, at 10:20, almost 4 hours after I got to the venue, the moment I'd been waiting for happened. The lights faded, There Will Be No Violins When You Die, the instrumental closer to the album Music for the Recently Deceased, boomed through the speakers, and out came the band. First, JJ Peters, sweat rag on his head, stepped behind his kit for the first time in 10 years.
Well, not exactly. I guess he probably practiced with the band beforehand and he'd played other shows on the tour already, but you get me.
Then, out came the somewhat low profile these days, Kevin Cameron with his guitar to take his place on stage right. Jamie was up next, sporting a stylish Mo and carrying a bass rather than his usual microphone. Next up, we had arguably the biggest star of the band, Gunnar Weinhofen, who ran out full of energy, raising up one arm in a power pose. Their opener, When Goodbye Means Forever, kicked into gear and right as the vocals were about to start, outran Michael Crafter in his now iconic SK Forever bulletproof vest.
I know I'm being a little over the top here, but this was really special to me. It's hard to put into words how much this meant to me.
I was smiling ear to ear the whole time. When it really hit me just how much this meant to me was during their fourth song of the night. Your shirt would look better with a Colombian necktie.
Oh man, what an early 2000s song title.
The chorus kicked in and Jonah started singing his clean vocal part and the whole place just erupted into a sing-along. I'm always a bit hesitant to sing along at gigs. I get in my own head a bit. I get self-conscious, which is stupid, but I can't help it. As soon as the chorus started, I was singing along to every word, and that's when I noticed I had tears in my eyes. Bloody hell, that's a bit much, isn't it? I thought to myself. But that thought only lasted a fleeting second. Who cares? I was just so incredibly happy to be there in that moment.
So, I hope this really long-winded story helps you to understand why seeing I Killed the Prom Queen in 2025 is my number one best thing in 2025. Now that you've listened to me ramble on and on and on and on about all my favourite things of the year, I want to hear from you guys. What was your favourite thing of 2025? Whether that's a movie, a show, an anime, a game, a song, or a personal experience. Put it in a comment down below and let's get a discussion going. Let's keep the positive vibes flowing, hey? I hope that you guys loved this video because I really, really loved making it. It was a lot of fun. I'm thinking I might make it a yearly tradition. What do you think? Anyway, see ya.